Worcestershire, a county intertwined with jumps racing, being so close to the hallowed turf of Prestbury Park. We have come down to the base of the Malvern Hills to visit a Grand National winning trainer who has teamed up with an old friend to launch an assault on the flat season. We drop in on a former St Leger winner trying his hand in the National Hunt Stallion ranks, and a small-time breeder hoping for more big-time success at the Cheltenham Festival. Here is what's coming up on this week's show.
That's the love of the flat, is everyone has a chance, and it's more worldwide. You know, we can go to Dubai and Bahrain, America, France. There's just a lot more options in the flat.
Let's be clear, I wouldn't mind winning the Grand National again. So we're still going to keep trying in national hunt racing.
This morning on the gallops we saw a 3-year-old chaser going up with a 2-year-old, unraced 2-year-old. So we've actually found it much easier than I'd anticipated.
I believe they're more Denman-esque than say Corto Star. They have that look about them. They're certainly going to be powerful, yeah, strong, a little old-fashioned.
Yes, I was a bit disappointed actually how much I got for him, but obviously Blue Brazil was up and coming, wasn't he? And I actually did think at the time, if I'm only going to get that sort of figure for Queen of the Stages foals, will it be worth me breeding any more?
Very exciting times here at Urloxhey. A new venture, the introduction of Jamie Insole, the introduction of the flat. Lots to look forward to, I'm sure.
We've known each other a long time, and I think Jamie was ready for his to change to his trainer status, and it's great timing for me too. Wanting to go dual purpose and needing new skills to bring to the table, but also I've been doing it for a long time, so it's great to have somebody able to come out, do it, and share the responsibilities.
And for me, it was a sort of natural progression to 6 years as assistant to Charlie Hills. I was looking for that next sort of step up, and it's so difficult for assistant trainers to now progress to that next stage. So with the help of the backing with Richard and the expansion of the yard, hopefully we'll be a force to be reckoned with.
So my role is to make sure that all the staff are operating and working well for them. But there's so much involved in a yard, from entries to looking after the owners to doing all the promotion and trying to attract new owners in, buying horses, to ordering the hay and making sure that, if a fence comes down, that's mended. So there's an awful lot to do, and I suppose my job really is to take the weight off Richard and Jamie to make sure they can concentrate on their role, but also just to make sure that everyone's aiming for the same thing. So, for example, in our yard, we're very keen on turnout, and the health and happiness of the horses is so important. And we've got to make sure that those sort of non-negotiables are being represented by everyone, and all the staff understand what we're trying to achieve, whether or not that's for Jamie or for Richard. And actually, it's been great. This morning on the gallops, we saw a 3-year-old chaser going up with an unraced 2-year-old. So we've actually found it much easier than I'd anticipated.
And you've clearly got a sporting brain, but it hasn't always been racing, has it?
Well, that's right. My background's in football. I earned my living in football for 20 years, working at Reading Football Club and Portsmouth Football Club, and then as director of football at a big independent school. And actually that's been really helpful as well, because again it brings some fresh ideas. I think traditionally within racing you often get an assistant trainer who then goes on to become a trainer, and sort of ideas get passed around, but very rarely do you have people coming in from a very different background. There's a lot of things we do in racing that are very similar to football. If you think about the yard, it's very much like a training centre here. We're buying and selling players, bringing them in. We've got our coaches, we've got our physios. It's a very similar setup really, and think about areas like performance analysis and the technology we use. It's all very similar, but I do think in a way racing's a little bit behind, and hopefully some of those ideas are incorporated in football and we're able to bring in and be slightly ahead of the game in terms of racing.
We built this superb new yard here 5 years ago. My wife and I designed this yard. It was just 2 houses and land. We've got a great setup here. We've got 120 acres, lots of turnout. We've got 2 lovely gallops. I've always felt in the back of my mind this would be a superb flat yard. Now, interestingly, I still keep my hill gallop at my old yard, which is still operational, because I've always enjoyed that for the national hunt horses. But I was very keen to see how we could get on in flat racing. That's part of the reason. The other thing is I do think national hunt racing is going through quite a challenging time itself at the moment. Numbers of owners are down, numbers of horses are down. There's a massive dominance from Irish horses coming over for whatever reason, and winning our national hunt race and dominating it. And it's harder to compete at the top end in national hunt racing now. So there's a number of factors. Flat racing is also a lot more commercial. You know, flat racing is more international, and there's lots of stories of horses doing well and being sold abroad for big sums of money. So I think you can understand why a lot of owners are attracted to get involved in flat racing, and I'm certainly enjoying the challenge.
So my granddad, he actually was a flat jockey in Ireland, and he trained for a number of years. We had the yard on the Curragh, which we still have today, and we rented out. And just growing up around that sort of got me hooked, but it wasn't until I was, I'd say 14, 15 when I really started getting involved. You know, my mum and dad moved to Essex. Dad worked in London. Mum was obviously daughter of a trainer, and they tried to keep me away from racing as much as possible. My mum's younger brother was actually killed at Huntington, Vivian Kennedy Jr. So he made the move over from Ireland to Lambourne and rode as a conditional, and yeah, unfortunately got killed when he was 21. So very much my mum's plans was for me not to go into racing, and I played rugby quite a lot to a high standard when I was growing up. I went to a rugby college, same school my dad went to. Dad played high professional level of rugby, so that was the plan to begin with. But yeah, after I used to go away on my weekends with my uncle Will Kennedy, who obviously a professional jockey at the time, used to go to Cheltenham Festival. Just meetings like that sort of got me hooked, and yeah, 15 I think was the first time I went on my summer holidays to Alex Hales and Paul Webber, and spent, you know, my 8 weeks there while everyone was off on holiday and socialising. I was, you know, working hard in you know, Paul's and Alex's yard, getting the experience I needed for my future. I actually stayed at school until I was 18, and when I was 17 and could drive, I used to drive up to Newmarket, and I ended up missing 2 or 3 periods in the morning before I came back. Used to go up and ride out for John Berry and Neil King when he was based in Newmarket, and actually, you know, rode some pointers for Andrew Braithwaite, who's now a leading figure for the British Racing School. So no, that was my base before I left school, and then joined Twiston Davis, and sort of never looked back since.
And you also ended up at Alan King's, didn't you, as well?
Yeah, so I was at Twiston's for a year, which was my first proper professional full-time job in racing, and I rode a lot of pointing that year, and then I left and went to Allen's, and I was at Allen's for a good 5.5 years, got my conditional licence, so rode for Allen for a couple of years. Was lucky enough to, you know, look after some good horses. I rode Smad Place every day. It's quite fitting actually, the week I left Allen's was the week he retired as well. So it was, you know, quite a compelling departure. But yeah, 2 years riding professionally for Allen gave me a sort of good baseness as a jump jockey, and learnt a lot. And it was actually Allen that, you know, said to me, I think you should pursue a career training. If I started knuckling down then when I was, you know, 22, 23, and focus on the training, then you could have a lifelong career. So that's what I did, and did another sort of 1.5 years with Alan as his pupil assistant, and then looked to progressing on the flat and getting experience in a flat yard, and that's when I joined Charlie Hills as his pupil assistant for the first year, and then assistant then for another 5 years after that.
And do you think Alan King saw your business savvy, your business acumen from quite a young, early stage then, if he was advising you to go into training at the tender age of 25?
I think so. He must have seen something in me. And Alan was such a great sort of master to work under. You know, he learned from the Duke, and very much one of the only sort of old school trainers now, I think. You know, people like Henderson and Alan, they don't come around that often anymore, and it was great to sort of learn. He was very strict. He knew what he wanted, and it was eye-opening to see. And then moving to sort of Charlie's, it was amazing to see the difference from sort of a national hunt side. And you know, at that time, Alan was very much getting into the flat game. You know, we'd had a Royal Ascot winner with Primitivo, but he was still building up his flat team, and then making the move to Charlie's was, you know, just a whole, you know, eye-opening experience. Seeing how a 140 horse flat yard was run. You know, you're training for some really big owners. We had, you know, Sheikh Hamdan, you know, 34 horses for Sheikh Hamdan. Juddmonte, I think we had 12 when we started, and it's a completely different aspect when you're dealing with these high-profile owners and these, you know, very, very, you know, expensive yearlings and 2-year-olds. So that was definitely a great experience.
We're just coming up to the 10-year anniversary for when Pinot de Rey won the Grand National for us, and at the time, Jamie's uncle is Will Kennedy, and Will was our regular rider, #1 rider for a period of time. But around that time anyway, Jamie came up, I think when he was about 18 and 19, and rode Pinot de Rey up our gallop. So yes, we go back quite a long way.
It's starting to become a bit of a family affair here, isn't it, with you being Jamie Insole's uncle. You must be very proud of what he's achieved so far and the start that he's made under rules as a trainer.
Yeah, great start. Brilliant for himself and Richard, Dan obviously. I'm really keen to support Jamie and help him in any way I can, and it's really nice to come in and sit on some of these horses. And I've always had a huge love for the flat as well. I mean, I think I probably first wanted to be a flat jockey and then ended up just being too big, and so retired now and got other things on, but I still enjoy popping in, sitting on a few, and nice to sit on some nice yearlings as well.
And how thrilling would it be for you, being part of Jamie's family, to see him get a classic winner or a group winner on the board? Because I know that's what one of the aims here is, for him to do that eventually. Wow,
yeah, big question that. Let's let him get a few more winners under his belt, but obviously that's what you dream of as a rider. You dream of it, and Jamie rode for a little bit, but training's always been his passion. And yeah, if he can get a listed winner and then a Group 3, and we'll build up to that Group 1. But yeah, it would be fantastic, and he's got some nice horses here to go to war with, and fingers crossed one might rock up at Royal Ascot, and that'd be a great start. I'm interested to know what made you want to go into the flat so much, considering your early part of your life really in racing was involved very much on the national hunt side.
The flat has more longevity, definitely think. I feel like buying yearlings is like a lottery ticket, it's like a dream. Where can you compete against, Sheikh Mohammed and people like that? Yes, they have more money and they're buying sort of £1 million yearlings, $1.5 million, almost above. And Joe Bloggs can buy a yearling for 10 grand and ends up wins a Group 1. I think that's the love of the flat, is everyone has a chance.
What I really see in Jamie is this is someone who eats, sleeps, breathes racing. He's all over it, he's loving it, he's thinking about it all the time. His attention to detail is extremely high. He's a very good horseman, but he very clever in terms of helping the selection of horses, and certainly into the detail. So I've been really impressed by how much he's grasped this, and we have got off to a very good start. Banging in a few winners, which is fun, and yet of course the heavyweight horses haven't even started yet. That's all to come.
Well, I definitely think we're lucky because we've got the jump horses here, and we've been able to buy some older horses. We're not pressured on trying to get these 2-year-olds out early, and I guess what I'd love to be known as a a sort of a classic trainer. The likes of Gosden and Haggis and people like that, people that are taking on these nice horses and nurturing them. So we definitely got a few sharper type horses, but a lot of the horses we bought were mile and a half horses that we're going to nurture and hopefully come to fruition as their 3-year-old careers, and hopefully be 1 or 2 of them hopefully turn up to be at group level. And
what I like about your training angle at the moment is that alongside your ambitions for those younger horses, you've also got some older handicappers. You've made some quite shrewd purchases already and have got some wins on the board too. So it's a little bit of both, isn't it, at the moment? Definitely. So obviously we can't just rely on the 2-year-olds, especially some of them probably won't start running till middle of the season. So we've purchased a number of horse in training horses. We've really had to improve to get them winning, and we've had 3 of them already that have won first time out for us. I really think this will be a really special place to train young horses. They're so relaxed here, and I think we'll really do well with fillies, just because we can offer them so much turnout here, such a relaxed atmosphere. They don't have to walk very far from the gallop. In terms of, at the moment, they're not putting a foot wrong, so hopefully it's exciting time. It must be quite a fun change for you as well, seeing riders like Ross Orion coming in, Gina Mangan doing a bit of work, a completely different outlook for you as well, watching them in their expertise and their work.
Absolutely. It's great that they are and they're embracing it. I mean, it's quite funny, obviously, if you have a little bit of success, jockeys turn up because they want rides. Yeah. But I mean, with those two you've mentioned, Ross and Gina, Gina comes in on a regular basis. Ross has been in a few times now. I mean, they've both done a great job for us already on the track. So, and it's lovely forming that relationship with them. So, but yes, you know, and people like Ross are asking what he thinks of this yearling or that yearling. Well, he has sat on a few, so his opinion's worth it.
I've always kind of known Jamie when he was in Charlie's, and kind of said to him when he was starting up that not to forget about me, and lo and behold he didn't. He kept his word on that, and we've had some good success over the winter so far. He's been placing the horses really well, and who knows, it's a long summer, but he's hit the ground running so far with the older horses, so if the 2-year-olds can do him justice as well, he'd be away.
I come in twice a week, every week, and I might have an advantage of just seeing the benefits from not being here every day, you know, as in how much they come on, how much they've grown, whereas the girls and guys that are here every day, credit to them, you know, they do a great job. Makes it easier when I come in the once and twice a week just to sit on them, but it's really pleasing, and I suppose being freelance, the one thing you're missing out of is being a part of a team, and they're very welcoming here, they're very friendly, and it's nice to have your foot in the door. The facilities he has at his disposal, you know, I'd call it a hotel for horses, you know. You'd be quite happy. You know, the turnout that they get is brilliant. Simplicity is key, isn't it? That's their natural habitat, and they're happy, you can tell.
And you mentioned Hill Station. Not only was he one of your first winners, he was your first winner, but he was also your first runner. How was that as a feeling? It must have given you great thrill.
It was really exciting. Sort of, I'd finished the course the week before, and on the Friday actually, and we'd set everything out with the BHA, so we were all good to go. But Richard was umming and ahhing whether to change the licence over, because he had 3 winners until he got to 600 winners. So he was saying, "Oh, Jamie, can we just take a pause a minute? I'd really like to get to 600 winners." And I said to him, I said, "Look, Richard," I said, "I think this Hill Station will win on Wednesday." I said, "If we turn the licence over on Tuesday, I feel like he'll come out and win and be our first winner." And Richard said he'll have a think about it over the weekend, and he came in on Monday, and he said to me, he's like, let's change it over, let's do it so that Hill Station's our first runner on the Wednesday. And then, yeah, he won first time out. So
extra pressure for you there then, wasn't there?
Extra pressure, yeah. I wouldn't say I planned it a little bit, but I wanted us to get off to the best possible start, and you know, I picked a few horses that we'd purchased to try and run first time out the week after, and luckily enough, you know, Ninth Life went and won on the Wednesday. Hill Station then went and backed up a second win within 8 days on the Thursday, and then Great Blasket went and won on the Friday as well. So to have 4 winners in the first 8 days was extremely exciting.
Let's touch quickly then on your future, your aims, your ambitions for the yard now, because of course it's all change, and I imagine there are things you'd like to achieve in the future.
Absolutely. I mean, let's be clear, I wouldn't mind winning the Grand National again. So we're still going to keep trying in national hunt racing, albeit, as I've mentioned, is extremely difficult at the moment to compete at the top end. But we still love national hunt racing. I've still got a great, lovely bunch of faithful national hunt owners who still love it as much as we do in terms of trying to find national hunt winners. That said, wouldn't it be special if we could train? Can we dream of a classic winner? Is it possible? I don't know. You know, at least try and get a group class winner. These would be exciting things, and not many people are really properly doing dual purpose training in the way perhaps it used to happen. And so it's you train them differently. They need a different preparation. There's different challenges, but it's an equally good challenge, an exciting challenge. So I love the idea of seeing whether this yard could unearth a champion at some point.
Breeding national hunt horses can be a tricky old game, but Dr. Richard Newland has decided to invest in a stallion, and not just any old stallion, a former St. Leger winner. And just like Martello Sky here, there could be plenty more gorgeous greys running this farm very soon.
I wanted to move on to the breeding side of things, because I know you're a fan of breeding and it's something you got into, I suppose, fairly late on in your training career.
Yeah, very late on. My ambition was to try to breed some of our own national hunt horses and hopefully one day breed a champion. And so we've got, well, I've now got about 7 mares that, all decent mares. So all proven good racehorses themselves. But I felt, originally I went to Cave Tara, but then Cave Tara fairly soon after that was retired, and I personally felt there was a bit of a lack of quality national hunt stallions in this country. And so when I was, when I got to hear of the possibility of buying Logician, I was very keen to be a part of it. So there are five different stakeholders. So I own, I think, 22.5% of Logician, brilliantly run by Shade Oak Stud, who are well supported by Brian Mayo. Brian, who's so involved in the Thoroughbred Breeders Association, and Brian, who got me involved. I'm very lucky, really, because I had a lot of confidence in the stallion, so I was happy to send my own mares there anyway, and it makes the whole thing much more cost effective. We don't know yet whether he's any good, do we? Because he's not had a chance for his progeny to run, but on paper, the look of him, the stamp of him, the background to him, his performance, there's every chance he could be a real superstar stallion in national hunt racing, I think.
There's a lot of stats done on stallions and things, but certainly racing performance is very, very important in my eyes. And we stand 3 stallions here, Logician and Telescope and Dartmouth. And they've all raced at the highest level in group races. He's the only one, there's a classic Group 1 winner there. So.
And you'd be hoping he's going to make a big success and maybe become champion stallion at some point?
Certainly very important to me. We've managed to achieve leading sire in Great Britain twice, and I would like to do it one more time before I retire. And certainly going for a stallion of his profile, I think probably gives me the best chance.
We've seen some of the foals who look as though they're strengthening up nicely in their early days so far. Do you think they could potentially go on to be scopy sorts over hurdles and fences in time? I
hope so. I believe they're more Denman-esque than say Corto Star. They have that look about them. They're certainly going to be powerful, strong, a little old-fashioned.
Breeding superstars is often associated with big-time operations, but there's always room for small-time success. Perhaps a handler with a small band of broodmares who's done very well and certainly has the constitution for it. I think I've got just the person. Sally, you'd be one of the smaller breeders around, but often from the most diminutive of acorns can come the grandest of oaks. And that is exactly what's happened in the case of Constitution Hill, who of course came from humble beginnings here at Bradford House.
Yes, absolutely, yes. Small breeder I am, and I've had 4 broodmares maximum. And people, especially local people, and people when they find out that or they ask me, have you got anything that we might know? Anything done anywhere? I've got, actually, you might know, yes, Constitution Hill. They are absolutely shocked that obviously I've bred a small breeder, Constitution Hill, which is lovely, and it's quite funny, really.
And it must give you great satisfaction and pride to see his exploits on a racehorse, given the fact that he started off life here.
Oh, absolutely. It's more than I could hope for or imagine. It's absolutely wonderful what he's achieved.
And you've still got horses very much around the place here, haven't you? Quite a few of them.
Yes, I've got 2 youngsters. Hopefully we will race them, a filly and a colt. And I have got some ex-race horses here and an older broodmare. And yes, so we've still got plenty of horses on the land.
And Queen of the Stage, she came from Nick Williams. What was she like character-wise?
She was a little bit quirky when she came to us. She was in foal, and initially we put her by herself in the second paddock down here, and she had 2 horses next to her, and they came in to have an injection from the vet, and she jumped the fence. So yeah, so in the early stages we did have to keep an eye on her because she was a bit quirky. And as she had more foals, she did become a bit calmer.
But I suppose she had that quirkiness perhaps left over from her racecourse days,
Yes,
in
yeah.
which she was a pretty smart mare.
She was a lovely black type mare. We were very lucky to have her. Yeah, she'd proved herself, so that was very good.
How did you originally get into racing? Because it happened quite late on in your life, didn't it?
It did, yes. I had a horse. I was just really a happy hacker, and my daughter really was really into eventing, loved doing that. And then my husband one day bought me a racehorse, which was a wonderful thing. And we kept them with Nigel. And then I had another one. And then we moved here. And then when we renovated the stables, we decided to put 2 folding stables in. I thought, well, I'll never do that. And here I am. So really, I just thought one day, yes, I am going to have a go. I got Nick Williams to buy me my first 2 brood mares. And I took off from there, really. And, it's been a wonderful journey.
And for someone who didn't really know what they were doing originally and didn't really know anything about breeding, it must have been quite a leap to then go headfirst into it. I mean, it must have been quite scary, I'd imagine. It
was totally daunting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew nothing about breeding at all. I say I haven't had a racing background. I knew how to look after a horse, but certainly knew nothing about breeding. But fortunately, I've had good people to advise me over the years, and they've been at the end of the phone. And then I think I left it to Nick, really. Nick Williams, who's always bought my horses for me.
Must have been quite an important shoulder to lean on, I'd imagine, having Nick there.
Yeah, well, he's very, very into his breeding. And it was just like a natural progression over the years, really. And I used to say to him, if you ever saw a horse that, or came across a horse that you think would be suitable for me to breed off, obviously black type, fantastic, yeah. And so it's just sort of was a slow progression.
Is there a difference between the level of enjoyment you get between owning a horse and breeding a horse? So, for example, Capsule you owned, opposed to Constitution Hill that you've bred on a racecourse, and how they succeed?
Well, I do get the same buzz from watching Constitution Hill as I did watching my own, definitely. But obviously, when you don't own it, you do miss out on an awful lot, don't you? Because obviously, you're not in the paddock, you're not, it's not your horse, is it? So obviously there is a big difference, but I do still get a huge amount of pleasure out of watching him. And my stomach still does churn when I go to watch him.
And when you sold him, he was just under 17,000, is that right, I think?
Yes, I was a bit disappointed actually how much I got for him, but obviously Blue Brazil was up and coming, wasn't he? And I actually did think at the time, if I'm only going to get that sort of figure for Queen of the Stages foals, will it be worth me breeding any more? Because as we all know, it costs such a lot of money really to keep them and what have you. And but then I put her to, she went to Fleming's Firth after, and then that sort of did push the price up. So then I was getting more money for my foals then.
And Queen of the Stage, eventually you sold her as well, but
I did.
Obviously after what has happened with Constitution Hill, so her price was boosted a little bit, wasn't it? Well,
even before Constitution Hill hit the big time, I was thinking about sort of slowly wrapping it up to a degree really, and or slowly doing. But obviously it seemed like a good time then to, if I was going to do it, to sell her really. So yes, it was a hard decision to make, but I've done it.
And his first Cheltenham Festival victory, of course, came in the Supreme Novices hurdle. Yeah. Were you there to witness that?
Yes, yes. Absolutely, jumping around out of my seat. I had all faith in him. Yeah, no, it was wonderful. Yeah. No, it was a great privilege to be there and to watch him.
Heading towards 2 out, John Bond the white cap, black cap for Constitution Hill, who saunters alongside. The penultimate flight, Constitution Hill and John Bond, inseparable. Constitution Hill sweeps majestically into the lead, rounding the final corner. He opens up by 4, 5, 6 lengths. John Bond is chasing his stablemate, but he's surely chasing in vain. Constitution Hill down towards the last in the Supreme. And he's over safely, and he's over clear, and it's a yawning gap back to John Bond and Kilcrut. Constitution Hill, a class apart, wins the Supreme.
That's it for the latest episode of This Racing Live. Thank you so much to those who have opened their doors to us this week, and to you at home for watching. Until next time, it's goodbye.
Watch live racing now on racingtv.com.